Welcome. Today we're going to be cutting a corporate pencil skirt or a corporate skirt, but it's going to be a very fitted skirt. Now look at the above measurements: my waist, my hip, and my skirt length. These are the most important measurements for this skirt, if not all. So what I'm doing right now is that I'm measuring, the allowances I need for this clothes, the sewing allowance plus the zip allowance on my largest part of my measurement for this skirt, which is 38. So I'm using 38 plus 4 inches sewing allowance plus 3 inches zip allowance. So in total I have 45. So for this cloth I'm going to measure out 45 and take the tip to meet each end at that 45, just like I'm doing. So once they meet each other, then I will now straighten it up. I folded at 46. So I'll be checking it to ensure that I don't have less than 22 in all, because I'm going to be doing 45 divided by 2, which will give me 22 and a half. So I'm going to measure these parts to be sure that I don't have anything less than 22. I should have, instead of less than 22, I should have 23. So that's what I'm going to be ensuring right now. So that's what I'm doing. So I checked, and then at 23 was where I stopped. So when you are done doing this, you are already done folding the material into two. You fold again, but before then this material is a bit too long, so I'm going to be cutting it out so that it will be shorter and easier to handle. And I'm marking my skirt length, and this skirt is going to be having a band. It's a bit stretchy, so I'm not going to be adding any lining, and it's going to be a skirt without a slit since it's a bit stretchy. So I'm just removing that 2 inches band. That's what I'm removing at the upper part, so I can mark my length. So I just marked the skirt length. So I'm marking it so I can cut it equally. So I'll just be cutting it off, then be cutting as at that point where I marked my zip allowance. So that's it. Look at the way I folded this material. Please, I folded into two first to mark all these things before I fold again. So this is the way I'm going to be folding it. I'm going to be taking that place that has a fold that doesn't have an opening, and then I'm going to be resting it on the part that has an opening, and that part that has the opening is the back, which has the zip allowance, and the part which doesn't have that opening is the front without the zip allowance. Now the zip allowance I'm using is 1.5 inch, because I used 3 inches when I was cutting this material. So 3 inches divided by 2 is 1.5. So that's what I'm using, 1.5. Right now I'm marking my waist measurement. My waist is 32. I'm dividing it into 2 first. I got 16. Into another 2 I got 8. So I have 8 plus 2 inches sewing allowance, which will give me 10. I'm sorry that the tape is not really clear. Maybe it's from the lighting. So at 10 I'll be marking on that fabric, and look at the side I'm marking it. I'm not marking it at that midpoint of the cloth. I'm marking it at the extreme, the part that has double fold. Now from that waist point I'll be marking my hip. You can measure where your waist is starting from to your hip. Now I'm shifting a bit to measure my band. My band, I'm going to be using 2 inches, please. I changed it to 2 inches, please. So I'll be using 2 inches for my band. So I just marked that point for my hip. Kindly subscribe if you have not subscribed to this channel, and leave a nice comment so I can know your feedback. Okay, after marking my hip, I'll just go towards the end of my clothes or my material, and then mark. It depends on how fitted you want that part to be. Some people take 2 inches, some people take 1. But since I'm not going to be having slits at the back, I just took 1 inch. I removed 1 inch from that my hip, so it will not be too tight, at the knee part. So that's what I did. So that's almost all. What I'll be doing now is I'll be marking my zip allowance. From my zip allowance, after my zip allowance, just around that where the buttock is starting from, I'll be slanting a little, so it will also have a little bit of slant and make the skirt more fitted. Look at the lower part of my hip. At that point, I'll just slant my tape a bit, and slant it down till the end. Now if you want to have a slit at this point, you can insert your slit. You can stop where you want to put your slit and then all that. But for this skirt, I'm not going to be having a slit, so I'll just sew down from that point down. That's after putting my zip. Okay, I'll be cutting it out. I'll just cut it from that point to the waist point. So that's almost everything. I'll measure the band, the measurement for my front band and for my back band. I'll just place it on it now, so you see how it's being measured. Now I just took 2.5 inch, so I'll use 1/2 inch to sew for the sewing, and then I'll use 2 inches for the band. That's 1/2 inch sewing allowance and 2 inches for the band. So I'll be placing this material on this place now, so that you'll see how to do it. So for this band, it's either that I place this material, I place each of them, because the skirt has 3 sides now, the front part and the back part that is divided into 2. It's either I place it and then cut, or I measure each of them. Like this front one, I measure the front and then measure the band as well and then cut. I'll do the same thing for each of the sides. So when I'm done, I'm going to be, this is for the darts. For the back dart, I will remove my zip allowance before I mark my dart, so that I don't make mistake. So it's important for you to remove the zip allowance first before you mark your dart, and then notch it. Remember I said that the front will not have a dart, but the back will have a dart. So for the length of my dart, I'm using 5. You can measure, 5 is okay, but for your dart, you can measure your dart, or whatever dart you can use it for this part. Now after that, I'm going to be putting my zip. Now my zip will be starting from the band. It will not start after the band. That's why I'm shifting my zip. I'm measuring 2 inches to know where I will close first. So now that I've known where my zip will stop, I'll be stitching from that part down. From this part I marked now, I'll be stitching it down. So I will remove these 2 inches first before I mark it, because these 2 inches, this side is going to be included in my band. So that's what I'll be doing. Now look at that point where I started slanting. At that point, when I'm sewing, I will just slant. I will not sew straight. I will slant my hand. So please slant yours if you want, this skirt to be slanted. Now for the band, that band that I cut, look at the way I placed it. Look at the way I cut it. I cut 2 inches and I'm placing it on top. And as you are seeing it like that, that's how I'm going to be sewing it for this side, for this skirt side, and for this other side. I'm going to be sewing it first on each side before I put my zip. So please add your band first before putting your zip. So this is the end result when I added my band, on the 2 sides before putting my zip. And I look at my darts, and this dart now and everything, this is just for the back. The front, look at the way the front is. the front is without that, and it's still going to be very fine and fitted. Now some people always like to put that. It varies. So if you want to put that on the front of your skirt, that's very optional. Now look at the way I joined my band. I joined it with 1/2 inch, and I'm going to be weaving this part now that you're seeing. So I'm going to be joining this part. Look at the way I'm going to be joining it on my allowance, on my measurement rather. On my measurement, I'll make sure that the zip is at the middle. Then I will join it. That's everything for the skirt. At this point, I'll weave it so it looks neat. So that's all for the skirt. Thank you for watching.